There are lots of pictures of you. You've met him through the years of your youth and your career. What is your personal reflection, your personal memory of him?
Well, I met him as a very young man, and then again when I was Foreign Secretary of Mexico, and he struck me as obviously charismatic, obviously well-informed, but I was also struck by the fact that when he wanted to, he could have endless conversations with his interlocutors on really nonsensical matters, such as Cuban production of cheese, or what kind of yogurt he should eat, which was better for his health, or really matters that did not seem to be of any interest to the person he was speaking to, although he was very knowledgeable about it. I don't know why he wanted to be knowledgeable about it or not, but it was very impressive how he had this great knack for talking about anything endlessly. And when he didn't want to talk substance, he could come up with any item of conversation and just go on and on rambling about it. And I literally mean for hours, not just for a few minutes.
Are you surprised? I mean, Fidel Castro is as polarizing in death as he was in life. Are you surprised by the war over remembering him?
No, I think this is the way he would have wanted it. This is the way he governed Cuba for nearly 60 years. This is the way he came to power. And I think this is the way he wanted to be remembered, as a controversial, polarizing figure. There are too many people who think very highly of him and too many people who think very critically of him for it to be any other way. It's not surprising, and I'm sure he would have wanted it this way.
And I'm just wondering, obviously, on the plus side, you have 100% literacy in Cuba under Castro. You have an amazing medical system and very low levels of infant and maternal mortality. Is that sufficient, on the one hand, to make up in any part for the incredible ledger on the other hand?
Well, I don't think so, Christiane. First of all, because these achievements of the Cuban Revolution may have faded with time. We don't really have any external statistics gathering mechanism by international institutions, either on education or on health in Cuba today. And so it's hard to say whether what they say is true really is, or was true but no longer is. But in any case, even if it were, there is no reason why that could only be done under a brutal dictatorship, which is what his government or his regime has been even to this day. Or secondly, if that was the only way to achieve it, which I don't think so, but if that was, what would the Cuban people have said if they had been consulted in this regard? We don't know what they would have said, because we don't know what they think, because they have never been consulted. So it really isn't a very attractive trade-off, I don't think, for anybody.
So let me ask you then, because you raise obviously the incredibly important point, and that is, what would the Cuban people do if consulted? We have seen that Raul Castro, in the few years that he's actually taken over and been president, has instituted some modest reforms, but even those have been losing some steam. Fidel himself, just before President Obama came, seemed to come and want to block even those reforms in the party congress that he attended. So, of course, everybody wants to know, is Raul now liberated to go full steam ahead? Does he even want to? What is on the cards from your perspective for Cuba?
Well, I think, Christiane, the main issue here is what Donald Trump is going to do, because Raul did bet on normalization with the United States and with the economic positive consequences of that normalization in terms of investment, tourism, trade, credit, etc. Now with Trump, it's very hard to say if that is going to continue. If it doesn't continue, then Raul's economic reforms will go nowhere, and his political reforms haven't even started, because there is really no political opening in Cuba. There has been no political opening under Raul Castro. Yes, the regime is a bit more tolerant. Yes, there are fewer political prisoners. Probably those who remain are better treated than they used to be in the past. But all of these reforms were a bit premised, I think, on there being some kind of economic improvement. And from what we see, the number of Cubans leaving the island, more than any time since 1994, it doesn't seem that economic conditions have improved a great deal.
Well, let me ask you then, because you mentioned the next administration, and Trump has been on Twitter today even, saying, if Cuba is unwilling to make a better deal for the Cuban people, the Cuban American people, and the U.S. as a whole, I will terminate the deal. So despite all you're saying and all the caveats you have about Raul and what might happen and etc., is it in Cuba's interest for this deal with the United States, the normalization, the planes going back and forth? Is it in Cuba's interest and in America's interest for it to be terminated?
Well, I don't think it's in anybody's interest for it to be terminated, not for Cuba, not for the United States, and not for Latin America. The problem is that Donald Trump won the presidency because he won, in part because he won the state of Florida. And he won the state of Florida because he got a greater share of the Cuban-American vote than Obama obtained in 2008 and 2012. And so today he owes the Cuban Americans in Miami-Dade County a great deal. And as we saw from the scenes Friday night on 8th Street or Calle Ocho in Miami, they were celebrating Castro's death. They certainly were not regretting it. So I think Trump is in a somewhat difficult position. He owes this group of people big time, and I'm not sure he can get away with doing nothing of what he promised.
So what do you expect? What could he do to make a better deal?
Well, traditionally, when the United States demands reciprocity from the Cubans on political issues, on political prisoners, on human rights, on democracy, on individual freedoms, the Cubans say no. The Cubans say we will have economic normalization on our own terms. If you want it, take it. If you don't, leave it. Obama decided to take it. Trump may decide that he doesn't want to take it, in which case I don't think he will roll back everything that Obama has done, but I think he will roll back some things. And since, in fact, Christiane, there has not been that much beyond news items, real American investment in Cuba over the past year is negligible.